Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Let's continue.
Faith, you can ride a VTOL over there. Let me know when you've reached the waypoint I've sent, and I'll divert one for you.
So we're gonna
What?
ride a
Ride a
VTOL.
VTOL?
I don't know what that's supposed
Okay.
to be though. I assume it's a drone, or it might actually not just be a drone, it might be an actual plane. I want to say I've watched about half of a speed run of the original game, and there's a lot that's better in the original Mirror's Edge. First of all, when you die and reload, it's way more instantaneous instead of this open world load that takes forever. And maybe that's just because the graphics settings are so much higher, but almost certainly it's because there's way more open world map data in Catalyst compared to the original game, which is really just a linear experience from point A all the way to point B to point C to point D all the way to through Z. Like it is one long sequence of events with really no divergent paths at all in the first game. And normally you would think, oh, well, that's a bad thing that open world is better. Honestly, I don't think it is in this case because there's way more polish, it feels, in the original game as far as going through linear paths compared to open world sections where you have two, maybe even three different directions you can go. And even if there is only one direction you can go, the path you're following is not custom made for that one chase sequence, um, or that one event. The only thing that Mirror's Edge Catalyst does kind of fix is the fact that it's not basically showing Glass City as being a Chinese dystopian country, where very specifically it was basically China to be implied as the bad guys in charge of the dystopian city in the first game. They also make the police look more sci-fi and less realistic. In the original Mirror's Edge, it looks like just real regular people. But then it kind of ties because in the middle of uh, in the original Mirror's Edge, you had guns and you could shoot guns, and it on first impression is a smart idea to get rid of that in favor of just being able to uh, punch and kick. But they didn't do anything in Catalyst to improve the punching and kicking, or even give it a new move, really, to make it better. And in fairness, the original Mirror's Edge gave you guns so you could shoot the other people that are shooting you. And there's been plenty of sequences we've had where people have just started shooting at you, and you really have no solution other than to try to avoid taking too many bullets to the back as you run away in Catalyst. So guns might have been better if I could have gotten into a group of four of Kruger-sec people and one of them had a gun, or even a disruptor. Like ideally, it would make sense that you would be able to disarm a disruptor from a group of Kruger-sec and then shoot four bullets out of four to kill the four people in that group. A gun that then you would just drop as a disruptor. And we do have a disruptor, but it's not taking people down as much as it's just staggering them. Uh, but I'm otherwise not really finding anything really improved upon. There are a couple of bespoke sections in the first half of the original Mirror's Edge where you're like riding on a train and then you kind of never ride on the subway train again. And that's a little bit different. And then there's a section where you're running through an office building, and for that one small section, you're supposed to and have to punch through glass to reach where you're going. Um, those special scenarios are probably better off not in the game, so I probably would applaud Catalyst for not doing that. But you can also feel the absence there. We've been seeing these monorail trains all throughout Glass City. Wouldn't it make sense at some point for there to have been a sequence in the first half of the game where you landed on them? Uh, the cutscenes in the original Mirror's Edge, and sorry for going on like this, but I want to mention it now while it's still fresh in my mind. The cutscenes in the original Mirror's Edge were just flat animated, like cartoon cutscenes, and it gave the original Mirror's Edge that low budget kind of single A feel. And they've gotten rid of that in Catalyst in favor of in-engine cutscenes, but then they didn't really put enough polish on the in-engine cutscenes to make it stand out. So Mirror's Edge Catalyst feels like it's just in that mushy middle where it doesn't feel like it's a highly polished AAA game, nor does it feel like it's a low budget indie favorite, a single A style game. Indie is the wrong word. It couldn't be an indie favorite since it was funded by EA and developed by EA. But yeah, I really would like to see Catalyst offer something new, something improved, something that just feels like a major improvement. And the grapple rope is not it, or the open world's not it, or a massive collection of dashes and side missions is not it. There was a true sequel that was in development that was canceled in favor of this game, and I can't help but feel like a true sequel would have done it better. This comes off as a reboot slash prequel. I have to remember that we still have the cameras, so it's not really worth it to jump around and try and collect too much. Yep. As soon as you even start to look for things. The collectibles, in a lot of ways, are unnecessary. I don't feel like the original Mirror's Edge would have benefited from that idea of having hundreds of collectibles, particularly since it doesn't really upgrade anything of importance. I would also say the colors are better in the original Mirror's Edge. You have very specific areas, hallways with like red walls painted to tell you to keep running through that hallway because it's a one door in, one door out type hallway. Specific offices that are all painted yellow consistently from room to room. Like other buildings that are specifically painted different colors for different corporations. There are less elevators in this game. A lot of the cutscenes in the original game also were points at which you would have turned the points at which you would have turned the cutscene on to get you to a higher point. So there are a lot of sequences that you're avoiding in the original game that you don't avoid in this game, where there are actual points where you just need to go from a very low point to a very high point before you even start anything else. That's interesting. That looks like just a regular plane. Alright. Back to the story. Isabel Kruger confirmed that Noah is alive, but you still don't know where he's being held, and the information is only available at Kruger Sec HQ, aka the dogs. The plastic has promised to help you get inside, but our solution may not be an easy one.
Plastic, I'm at the waypoint.
Good. Wait a second, and that's it. There was already a VTOL patrolling near you. I'm having them respond to a policy breach. Make sure you get on it. Somehow.
Okay. Run this direction. Then, just with blind faith, we will run this way. And
The VTOL should arrive any second now. Get ready, Faith.
yeah, timing here, I bet is not as crucial as they're making out.
It's there. You need to catch it before they leave. Follow it, and then use the mag to attach to it when they stop to hover.
So I don't.
They're going to the wrong coordinates, idiots. Go after it, Faith.
Okay. Notice there aren't any actual pulls in this game where you would like fall several feet into water and then have to work your way through that. Visually this feels a little wonky.
Stay on the VTOL. They should be stopping somewhere ahead to check on a building.
Yeah, almost certainly this is so scripted that there is plenty of time to just steal chips. We do now know the VTOLs are the helicopters. I missed a collectible while trying to run. We're seeing cameras inside of buildings. Did I get that? Nope. I'm getting this recording now.
Yes, it better be important. This is my private connection. Okay, it seems like it is not. I'll talk to you later then, Christian. No, wait! Yes? I want to talk to you about the situation. The situation? You accuse me. We need to find a way to resolve this. You screwed me over, Dogan. Ah, yes. Your friend.
Finally. That stupid pilot can't navigate at all. I got them to stop. Use the mag before they leave.
So here we have a cutscene very similar to the original game.
Don't worry. You're shielded by their interference field.
But what if someone sees me? You know, with their eyes?
Oh, well, they probably won't.
Okay, where do I get off?
At the landing pad, of course. Then make your way through the maintenance tunnels to the big dog, where their service stacks are.
Yeah, this is not giving you a particularly great view because of the way you're hanging on here. Like, it would have made more sense if you're just hanging, like, with your two arms.
They're diverting the VTOL to construction. You have to get off.
What the hell? I can't let go here.
No, don't kill yourself. That would be stupid. I mean, get off when they pass by the building.
So am I supposed to just press the left
Get off
bumper?
now.
This is just a cutscene. It maybe is prompting me to
Okay, I'm at the top of the
press the left trigger and drop, which we really haven't done.
Sorry about that. My override didn't work. You have to make your way over to the big dog.
So these buildings apparently are named Pup and Big Dog. Kind of interestingly, watching the speedrun of the original Mirror's
Find a
Edge,
way in. Try going down on the outside.
this
You could slide down the roof.
runner's vision doesn't seem to activate by default, depending on how you have the original game configured. And instead you get a kind of secondary runner's vision where it's just highlighting the doors to make them red, and the pipes and things like that. Which in a linear experience, that's really all you need. You don't need the lines. Just jump by faith, I guess.
To access prisoner data, you have to connect to the main server stack in the big dog.
I wonder if there aren't too many collectibles in this because this area, this city, this building is probably its own like separate mission section. So it's interesting to see where these buildings are. Yeah, for a second there, they are definitely teasing this final building. But it does somewhat also confuse what that spire and that final building really is. Is that where the conglomerate families hang out? Um, there's also a section in the original game where you get to a mall, and that would make a lot more sense if we had seen a mall to promote the idea of this as being a highly consumeristic society. Um, we're not saying that. There's also a lot more than you would think. Um, red valves that you end up turning to open paths, and that's probably a smart elimination as far as just not something you really need. This is a rather big and empty area. It's not really challenging you much, even as far as your parkour skills. And it does kind of always feel like that's the case, that you run through these areas that are not really thought through. My only guess is that maybe we'll get to some kind of stealth point where we have to stealth out of here, or maybe we'll just get a mad dash run, and then there'll just be a whole bunch of Kruger security like down here to make a region, an arena. Or we may not run into any of that if we're now seeing red lights that might be laser alarms or actual kill lasers. One thing I saw the speedrunner doing, and I don't know if we can actually do this, is he, in the original game, found a way to let go of the pipes and just fall, which is probably not the safest idea. Yeah, if I had fallen there, that would have been a problem. And there was a section where we activated a switch on top of an elevator to make an elevator go up, which is not realistic. There aren't just obvious switches and buttons on top of elevators. There are control panels, but they're kind of low to the roof of the elevator, not standing at human waist height with a button in front of it. Alright. Once again, we have the sonic problem. It seemed like the most logical thing would have been to go forward. Right. And yet, that's not what happened. It's also kind of weird in this case that it reset me at the top. Are we hitting a point where here where the game is actively going to make fewer checkpoints? You have to actively wait for this elevator to stop. There's no reason why that elevator, or why you would have known that elevator would have stopped. It's not like plastic is hacking things in here for your assistance. If hacking in this area was possible, you wouldn't have to sneak in the first place. Although I guess they could say hacking the elevators is a lot easier. Here we have yet a third. Can't get back down, and it wanted me to go down, not up. That's a third ladder texture that they've created now, where it would have made so much sense to have only one ladder texture. See, nope, pressing left trigger does not. And this is like a fourth ladder texture. Yeah. Left trigger does not let you jump down in this in Catalyst. That is definitely a gotcha sequence too, where they have intentionally put a slide there. And I don't know if I'm supposed to be following the wires. Like, kind of would make some sense to follow the wires and have some glowing electric wires.
But the auditive effects are strong enough for further research, don't you agree?
I do. And it would be a tremendous addition if we didn't have to rely on visuals alone.
I'll talk to Director Thorne tomorrow.
It would be nice if
What are you doing tonight?
these subtitles worked.
Nothing planned. Why? I'm not cycling topside next week.
I was thinking maybe you'd like a drink? Or just coffee or whatever.
Let's just make sure where would the subtitles be. This game does have some different like surround sound configurations, and they more than likely wasted a lot of extra effort. GPU memory restriction might be not a terrible idea. Yeah, undoubtedly Catalyst does work better. The brightness control actually I don't think really mattered as much. So yeah, we could turn runner's vision down. We could turn off actually a lot of the heads-up display because the original game actually was missing almost. It had no heads-up display to speak of. But subtitles are on right now. And yet it's not subtitled, so they got lazy there. And honestly, this could have been a game that could have been fairly accessible. Like, it wouldn't work for a lot of people with problems in their fingers, certainly, but if you're able to just try things over and over again, there's a certain type of player that can play some kinds of games that could potentially play this. Although, it would be a fairly hard game. This would be like, if you're a gamer and you have just a little bit of accessibility issues, you might be able to play this as the most potential difficult game. But then you throw in the online element of that and potentially competing at other people's levels, and that is an idea might get thrown out the window.
But the auditive effects are strong enough for further research, don't you agree?
I do. And it would be a tremendous addition.
And I
if we didn't
can't
have to rely on
clearly enough hear these people to figure out exactly what they're saying.
What are you doing tonight?
Nothing planned. Why? I'm not cycling topside.
I was thinking maybe you'd like a drink? Or just
Well,
coffee.
I don't think I was supposed to be able to reach it that way.
I guess I am.
I think that highlights how wonky and awkward some of these sections can be. Yeah, it just really doesn't feel like the same people that made the first game and hyper polished those runs made even a sequence like this. And this is a very linear experience anyway, so that didn't feel like that was a challenge as much as that was just something they did. We're at level 76. Are we going to have to work all the way down to level 70, level
Down the bottom
1?
of the elevator shaft. What next?
Let me check. Yeah, you're close to the umbilical. Make your way through maintenance to the outside and then cross there.
I had forgotten by this point that I was still in the wrong building. That seems very weird that the runner's vision went off for half a second and it's already back on. Really does just feel like that is fairly randomized. This logically does not make any sense that you would even have a room like this. What kind of weird maintenance room is this with no stairs or ladders? We should be seeing a lot more of the red ladders instead of other climbing gimmicks.
This better be worth it.
It should just have been established.
You'll be a legend if you survive.
Yeah, it should have just been established as an idea that there will be utility ladders on massive amounts of walls.
I met with Rebecca yesterday. She was acting cagey about something. Wouldn't tell me what.
What is she up to now? You really shouldn't have to spend so much time worrying about what your friends are doing.
She bought a gun.
She did what?
And she's bringing it to the rally, just in case.
She's going to provoke somebody, and someone will get hurt. Krugersek doesn't fool around.
Well, it'll be okay. I think I convinced her not to bring it. I'm more concerned about her new friends. They listen a little too intently to what she's saying. This isn't about violence. That's the one thing we want to stay away from if we want to keep the moral high ground. The corporations need to see that there are a lot of us who refuse to accept them directing Cascadia's future.
So, yeah, we're getting storylines that are telling us, like, what happened between Faith's parents and Rebecca. And somewhere around here is a secret document, but it feels like it's probably somewhere over there. So we're gonna do this, and then this, and then this. And there's the document. Was I supposed to wall run to this? Could I punch through the walls and break the glass to reach that? Yeah. It doesn't really feel like there's a way to reach this. Except for through some possible ceiling. Or through doors, if there were going to be secret doors that you could open by punching. Which that would be actually fairly annoying if all of a sudden every single Krugersek door that existed was actually a door that might be punchable or kickable open. Or that there was some kind of Easter egg where if you just kick through a door, you can even see through the edge here. There's nothing actually behind that door. They just wanted to make a wall. Right, so we have to continue further this way. Again, well, it's odd how this shifts you in spots for the fighting move. I'm assuming that gets us there. Yeah. But nothing, there's no kind of weird wall run or anything that would get me from over in this point all the way over here. There's some interesting falling action music playing. I don't even think there's particularly a way to get up here. So is the goal to make you realize that there was a collectible Was this potentially the first collectible that they were going to just put right in front of your face so you could find it in case you missed all the others? I doubt it. They made the first one fairly obvious to find. We can look out into the bay, and it's kind of nice in daytime, but it's not particularly anything special. It's just some sailboats. There's a Bauble Mall, and I think it was the mall that was blown up, but there might be multiple malls. I do have a question about this game as far as, is this a soft prequel or a reboot? Because if this is supposed to be a hard prequel, then that does kind of mean, well, I don't know how it could be a hard prequel, really. Because if Kruger's daughter really is Faith's sister, then that changes the story so much that it wouldn't really make sense for the original Mirror's Edge to take place after the events of this game. So it has to be a soft reboot, which does mean we
What
can...
happened to your family?
They're in the Greylands. Why?
How come you're not with them?
I can't stand my sister. She's an idiot. Do you have a sister?
No. Not anymore.
Notice that plastic doesn't even say sorry there. She's so antisocial, autistic. Yeah, since this can't be a hard prequel, we almost certainly are going to fight Kruger as the final boss and defeat him at the end of the story. Unless this game oddly goes in full circle and Faith fails and ends up back in jail like the game started.
You're at the main server stack. That's the heart of KrugerSec in glass. I wish I could be there.
KrugerSec in glass, as if there might be a whole different city. There is something also I think that would be weird now in 2022 if you were going to try and make a... This is different. If you're going to try and make a Mirror's Edge 2, Mirror's Edge Catalyst 2, whatever, runners, just the word runners, would have to be reevaluated and recontextualized. The massive amount of police abuse that has been televised and the Black Lives Matter movement that subsequently followed in the United States really recontextualized the idea of in a lot of people's minds of why people would run from cops or from an authority. It very often was the case that people not particularly informed of the scenario would say they shouldn't have run. Why do they always run? It's their fault for running. These are phrases that were said all the time, or they should have just obeyed authority, or they should have not broken the law. All of that almost certainly would be talked about on some level by the creators in a Mirror's Edge Catalyst 2. You can see in both the Mirror's Edge games, oops, that was awkward, they've been over backwards to make it obvious that the character you're playing as is for the most part a good character, and that you aren't just a terrorist or a criminal, that you're providing an actual service for people who are being underserved by society. They probably should have said that plastic has short-circuited that fan. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense that this big giant fan would be broken. This is a lot of computer stuff, but mostly it's, I think, boiling down to just textured walls that you can't climb on behind glass. And I think you probably would still want to keep a character like Faith, an Asian character. There would be a lot of complaints even if they did make a Mirror's Edge 2 and replaced Faith from being the main character in favor of, say, an African American character or any other minority. Like, one minority replacing another minority is not usually the preferable way to do things. Is there a pipe here? I guess I am just gonna have to jump and see what happens. Yep, there was a pipe there. We have some interesting lighting here, but a lot of opportunity for darkness also.
Sulfur stack is a maze.
Yeah, well, it wasn't designed with humans in mind. Pure machine space. Pure function. I bet it's beautiful.
Plastic comes off a little bit like the Tiny Tina character in Borderlands, although slightly more sane and less ridiculous. And in a funny way, we are dangerously close to crossing the point where Plastic as a character is more interesting than Faith is, because Faith has played it very close to the vest as far as what she costs.
Connect me, we will be noticed. I can delay the security routine a little, but it's impossible to avoid detection completely.
You're telling me this now?
I'd ask you to describe the room, but I guess you're busy. Are you busy? No, sorry. Forget I asked. I'm sure you are very busy since you're not saying anything. Kuma says hi, by the way. He seems to like you, and he doesn't like anyone. There's something wrong with his emotional response algorithm, but I can't find the error.
Something wrong with the computer's the robot's emotional response algorithm? Sure. They're dangerously, though, getting to the point where Plastic is going from being autistic and in techno lust with the computers to just downright describing a fetish fantasy around computers and technology. Like, you go too far in this direction and it's gonna get gross, for lack of a better term, real quick. Am I supposed to just drop, or am I supposed to jump? Or am I supposed to jump this way? Well, it seems like there's nothing here. Seems like this might be the direction. Wait, so I was supposed to jump, not drop. That wire made it feel like I was supposed to potentially drop, and it's fairly obvious that that wire should not have existed that way. Like, they may have thought that that would have pointed you in the right direction, but it would have been better if there was just a beam of light, a spotlight beam from that direction pointing that way, instead of the light being from behind. Here we have a whole bunch of computer panels. Whole bunch of computer panels. Whole bunch of computer panels. So more than likely we are running that way once we hit the button. There's an interesting question as to, is there a reason why you would label things KrugerSec inside your most secure facility? Or would it just be more generic and bland? There's a difference between having an icon on the screen and just labeling your cross beams. Alright.
Alright, I'm there. Connecting to a priority switch now.
Come up. Diving in.
This almost feels like this should turn off a
Always am.
grid node also.
I have access. Wow. Let me see. Prisoner
more thing. Grab anything you can find about Isabel Kruger.
Searching. And there. Done. Now get out. I'll start the decryption.
Like, ideally, she would want to steal as much data.
Go off in a few minutes. Fastest way out is to ride the employee shuttle leaving from the main lobby.
Alright, so here's some glass where if glass was going to be something you could break, that would be the time in which you would be able to do that. Nope. Instead, I'm supposed to go this way, which I didn't even see that. This is more likely mostly scripted. Yeah, ideally you would want to be able to have a script that would, if you were hacking something, that would download everything as fast as possible, because if it's encrypted, you're going to take forever to decrypt it, and you would want to have as much familiarity with the interface and the systems as possible, and just the file, where files would be. Like, most hacks are much closer to the range of somebody hacked into your server 3 months ago and has been very slowly just snooping around to figure out what they want to do in the first place before they actually take any actions. Interesting that stopped me there. Really breaks the game flow and the movement flow. And I guess the blue there is supposed to indicate where you're going. And you have a fairly fancy office here. I guess just showing off things. There was a section in the original game like this where you ended up jumping through an office quite a bit and then jumping through just this odd. Wonder if this is supposed to be something. Can we feed Scruff? Oh no, this is just straight up a reference to the Ratman in Portal, which is funny, I suppose. Funny little Easter egg here. But we're in the middle of a kind of serious section to have the Ratman mentioned or referenced. I don't think Mirror's Edge Catalyst benefits from being too influenced by Portal 2. Really. Because that's just a different type of game. Different experience.
I'm at the lobby.
I'd prefer the two stay.
Just leaving. You'll have to wait for the next one. All right,
See
you're on
these?
full alert. I hope you make it.
These guys know I'm here, and now I'm just gonna have to fight, and I guess this is the train section. Like, a lot of this literally is, let's take that same concept and let's put it in the same, in different places. Alright. Alright. Angle, punch. I cannot hit this guy. And you can see how knocking a couple people into each other doesn't really work. It would make a lot of sense for you to be able to pick up these guns once they started shooting real guns at you. Like, they're not sticking to the idea of getting rid of guns. Alright. I won't get any upgrades until
Hey, the next train should have arrived. Get on it, and I'll make sure it gets out of there.
I may have to start the whole fight over at this point. Yep, it's gonna reset the whole fight. So for now, we have only one disrupt, not two.
I'm at the lobby.
No, the train is just leaving. You'll have to wait for the next one. All right, they're on full alert. I hope you make it.
There's just nothing here. You can see the disrupt is not really working at any real level to improve things. Okay, so we're back down to 2. We can run around a little bit in this narrow area to try and get our shield back up. Yep. And they've just locked you into this problem. Like, let's try to play this more like a runner probably should. And hide here and do nothing.
No, the train is just leaving. You'll have to wait for the next one. All right, they're on full alert. I hope you make it.
So can these guys shoot me while hiding in here? Or can we just be complete cowards and just wait? Can we get down lower? The good news is Sentinels don't seem like they have any ability to pull you out of vents in as much as anybody else does. Clearly there should have been some kind of system like that, and it probably should just be that they have either a grapple gun that can grab you and pull you, or that they can just reach up there and grab you and pull you out. Then you would probably want to also make it so that there are never more than a couple of squares of air conditioner vent outside of any door. It may be that the train does not appear at all until you've taken out the first group of people. But yeah, if you always fell down this way and then the guy could always reach in here and grab you and pull you out, that would make more sense. But that would only serve to bring you into more of these encounters, of which we've seen there are actually very few of these, and they all tend to suck. Alright. It doesn't seem like you can get to that the lower area and wait for the train there. Alright. Which that feels weird.
I'm at the lobby.
No, the train is just leaving. You'll have to wait for the next one. All right, they're on full alert. I hope you make it.
It's oddly resetting me in such a way that Yeah. It's resetting me in such a way that I shouldn't be at 1 in a small percentage of disrupts. I should be at 2. Alright. Maybe the idea is to go down this way. Seems like they can still very blindly attack you. Alright, so we now have one guy who does seem like he's just not willing to move up in that direction. And I have to wonder, is this area going to ever unlock? Or do I have to go take on that one guy? Yep. I suspect I have to go take on the one guy. Come on. I don't know how you're supposed to get on the chain, and it's not showing you until you're already getting pummeled nearly to death by the Sentinel. Let's just... Interesting, the pause menu said that I'm still supposed to be intercepting the VTOL. Like, as far as focus shield being upgraded, seems to have done nothing. Yeah, we need 200 XP. What you would have to have here is every time I die, it would need to give me some kind of death reward to let me slowly grind up. Even if it was only... Alright, you're on full alert. I hope you make it. Let's see if we can run around. Like, running backwards is not a possibility. And just losing flow doesn't really work. Alright. So, like, you want to run, you want to slide, you want to jump, you want to run up here, do this, and not fall to your death in the process. And that really sucks because that felt like that's when I could have won. I definitely am not feeling the hand of a lot of QA testing happening here. We are late in the game, and I bet that very little effort was put into it.
I'm at the lobby.
No, the train is just leaving.
I imagine there was a few little bugs, or probably even more than a few bugs that were addressed in QA, but let's see if we were to jump up this way. just slide specifically to get him out of danger. Okay. So, is there a sentinel ready for me, or is it once again a case that there's just like one guy who's not wanting to meet me? And that, I'm just gonna assume that that lets me hit him a couple times, and then hitting him into the sign a couple times. Okay, let's do this again.
Hey, the next train should have arrived. Get on it, and I'll make sure it gets out of there.
Okay. Let's take the safest route first.
Hey. Finish her off.
That's not the safest route. I'm stuck behind glass, which again can't break this glass. So the answer was here. That was the only way to do this. And so yeah, in the original game, this would have been a cutscene,
I'll slow the train down
or
so you can get off.
if they showed it at all. In this case, it being in-engine or pre-rendered.
Anything on on those records?
Didn't change much.
To a place called Kingdom. Nothing on where that is, though.
I might have a way to find out.
Okay, I'll check up on Isabel Kruger next.
Thanks, Plastic. Talk soon.
It's interesting that she says a place called Kingdom, as if the idea of a kingdom maybe doesn't even exist in this society. Runner dropped, kit dropped, not drop kicked. Alright. So then that now unlocks side quest and a grid node to be able to fast travel to it, which means you probably have to fast travel here to do the grid node to even be able to fast travel here to do the side quest. Or you could just walk to the side quest. Meanwhile, the main story is really a lot closer, so although it seems like it is quite the long way around to even get to Kingdom, one would almost assume that this is Kingdom, this big tower, unless there is a whole other city. There's nothing we can upgrade here. It seems like it's fairly obvious we should not continue that mistake and have increased damage to Sentinels. Heavy damage, I don't know. Like, on one hand, I kind of would like the extended slide, and since that is the thing I'm using to fight the most with, that probably is the next upgrade, whereas these 4 remaining upgrades are like things that I'm probably just not going to ever do with having movements or being able to run around and attack Krugersec people. It's like these scenarios, even in the cutscenes, and I've said this before, just never actually happen in the game. You never have one Krugersec person just wandering around in the open world where you could hit them with a zip line. They didn't program the game to be like that. If that is what the post game is that there will just always be some Krugersec wandering around, then that also would be fairly annoying, because I'm really banking on the idea of the world being completely 100% peaceful, or having at least some way to make it 100% peaceful for the post game experience. Hmm. We did oddly find more recordings today than you normally would have expected. Um, but it still definitely feels like 5 is the number as far as any specific story, and so you would have to pretty much collect all the recordings before you started to have even one story fully completed. I feel like the stories very likely interconnect. We can still toggle our echo around for what little it matters. What I think is interesting about this is you look at just how much space has been devoted to changing the appearance of your echo and those customizations, which that was a waste of energy and waste of time, money, I'm sure. At some level, you had to pay some programmer to introduce those concepts, and that was all to serve EA Origin. It is fair to point out that EA Origin, as a concept, it was a complete and total failure, and still is a complete and total failure, as trying to be a separate competitor to Steam with only EA games. Um, and offering very little. In fact, originally you would get achievements that would give you points in EA Origin that would let you then unlock bits of DLC that were exclusive to EA Origin. Now the system is changed, so you're really not getting points to buy DLC as much as you might be getting points to unlock some small skin. Like, there were major components of games locked behind having to spend EA Ubisoft bucks, as it were. Let's see, as far as world progression, we didn't really collect a lot, so it's not super surprising that we didn't get anything. Storyline wise, we're 3/4 of the way done, which I kind of find that a little surprising. Like, if 11 or 10 is 3/4 of the way done, then there are 12, 13 more chapters of the main mission. It would be fairly weird. You can see a whole bunch of new missions also have been updated. Are those going to show up new? Or is it just telling me? Yeah, it would be weird if the story ended like a prequel and we just get Noah back and that's it. Like, if we don't fully at least fight Kruger. There is a scenario, I suppose, where you could end the story on fighting Kruger and not actually defeating him, but establishing him as the big bad guy for a potential sequel, and establishing Faith as actually being totally invested in the fight against Kruger. But that would be fairly dull, particularly since we know there isn't a Mirror's Edge Catalyst 2 or Mirror's Edge 2. There is a lot of confusion, certainly, where people think Mirror's Edge Catalyst is the sequel to the original game, and it was the next one made, but storyline wise, it isn't the case. It'll also be fairly boring if she just gets the tattoo and that's the end of the game. But yeah, it's worth pointing out that in the original Mirror's Edge, there was a actual, like, democratic process going on. Somebody was running to be like a new mayor or a new person in charge, or at least there was a political activist for the lower caste people that was trying to work within the system, and that person gets assassinated by Kruger, and Faith gets blamed for that and becomes a wanted person, and the runners by association become much more guilty and much more blamed for this assassination. uh, and it's at that point that you have to start investigating a mystery, which there's no mystery in this game, and it eventually leads to Kruger, and you eventually have to fight him and reveal his treachery to the world. um, it's seriously doubtful that that's going to happen. Like, what could happen right now with the whole, oh, I forget what it's even called, Project Reflection, which they haven't even mentioned in the past hour. um, you could potentially release all the data around Project Reflection and nobody cares, and they're just like, okay, whatever, we still have to live within our lives and our systems, and we're just too afraid to rise up and revolt. Revolution is very hard to do at any point, but it's practically impossible to do when you have major weapons that can be used against you. Um, if, for instance, this new Project Reflection had like disruptors built in that would shock people and knock them out, uh, or if it was just a case that KrugerSec has so many security guards that they could arrest everybody else in Glass City, it's already too late. And it does kind of have that feeling like it is probably too late in this case. There's so few average citizens that you see in the game, even though they introduced the idea of average citizens. It does feel like Kruger has secretly killed or gotten rid of so many citizens that the remaining few are easily controllable. Um, yeah, and that would probably be a bummer of a way to end the story. Anyways, I don't want to make this too long, so that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.